The harder topics to simulation session 1, not only do we get a lot of demand to discuss Sims 1 more, but it's just too costly to fail these exams now. As we know, there used to be some leniency, but now if you fail these exams twice, you're paying for the entire course over again. What might be worse though is that these simulation session weeks or weekend-long sessions are extremely time consuming. I know a few people that took the week off work to try to get into the week session to get it done faster and then failed the exam. I couldn't imagine that. You have to come in more prepared now. The Sims 1 exams are different from what we've seen before in courses 1, 2, and 3. It's now 50 long-worded, scenario-based questions, not the shorter ones we've been used to. I have a couple other videos on simulation session 1, but I wanted this one to be on the harder topics that not only come up on the exams, but you will have to role play, know, and understand for your weekend or week-long sessions. The customer service agreement and the buyer representation agreement. I remember everybody during the week having such an awkward time explaining the customer service agreement because who would want to use it? And the buyer representation agreement can always be a little tricky, but you just got to understand it and know what to say. I'll quickly mention that I've finished my Exam Master mini course for simulation session 1 that comes with the new Exam Master mini notes. Look for that in the description below. More on that later in the video, but let's get right into it. For both of these agreements, we'll quickly go over what it is, how to explain it to your clients or customers, and what it means for us as realtors. The buyer customer service agreement is a non-exclusive agreement between a buyer and a brokerage for customer service. Non-exclusive meaning just that. The customer can have multiple customer service agreements with other agents in the area. This agreement is used in situations where a buyer is not represented by the brokerage as a client and will receive limited services only. If you had to think of the main reason for this form, it's basically to understand each other and to document the relationship to protect yourself as a salesperson. This is not a client relationship, of course, but as per our code of ethics, we will have to treat a customer fairly, honestly, and with integrity, but we will not owe them any fiduciary duties or be required to promote and protect their best interest as you would if they chose to become a client and sign the buyer representation agreement. So why would you use this document? And keep in mind, in the real world, this does not come up that often, but we have to understand it to get those key extra marks. A buyer customer service agreement can be used to avoid multiple representation and conflicts of interest if the brokerage signing the agreement is also representing the seller. Another could be just the type of person you're dealing with, the type of buyer. Some buyers don't like to sign anything because they perceive that they will be limited. And that's fine if the person understands they won't be getting all of our services, but they're extremely happy with it anyways. Okay, how you would explain the customer service agreement, and let's use the multiple representation example because that's one that might come up in the real world. It's very common to want to avoid multiple representation situations because of our duties to our other clients involved in the situation, and we don't want that conflict of interest. For example, you could have a listing live for your seller clients and a person calls you. They tell you they saw your listing online, they are not currently working with a realtor, and would love to come see the home. You offer to show the property, of course, and while they're there, during the showing, they say, "We love the property and we'd love to make an offer." At this point, you could offer to provide services for them and use the buyer customer service agreement. You can tell them about or send them all of the comparable properties in the area for themselves to come up with a good idea for an offer, and you can also tell them that your brokerage will handle all of the paperwork and the transaction for them. You cannot, however, discuss any personal information about your seller clients, what their motivations are, and any offer price they'd be willing to accept. Nothing like that. To tell you the truth, in the real world, the consumer is pretty knowledgeable about the market and they almost always have a budget. So again, you will say to them, "I will still have the utmost integrity while I'm working with you. I'll send you a great list of comparable homes in the area, and myself and my brokerage will be handling the entire transaction for you." Pretty good customer service there if you ask me, and we as realtors love this scenario because we're not only avoiding that conflict of interest, avoiding that multiple representation, but we are also double ending the sale, which is good business. So that's the longer one, the customer service agreement, and what everyone I found was struggling on to do the role plays day one of the simulation sessions, but equally important is the buyer representation agreement. This form is easier to understand, but I'll still give you some great ways to explain it. The buyer representation agreement is used to document where we will be searching for a property for our clients, what type of property, and how long we will be at their service, plus what happens in the rare case the buyer will have to compensate the brokerage. First, I'll explain what I say when explaining the buyer representation agreement, and then that harder part, explaining the rare time that the buyers will have to pay. First, when I'm on the phone with them, or say even in person, I just explain to them, okay, so I'm really looking forward to working with you. We will find an amazing home for you. I'm just sending the buyer representation agreement over for you to sign. This means I'm now working for you to find the best possible home that fits your need, and I have an obligation to have your best interest at heart. Just keep it light and simple on that part, but the trickier part, the commission. But just explain to them that 99.9% of the time, the listing agent will be compensating us as the cooperating agent for bringing a buyer to the property. So we are essentially at your service for free. But that 0.1% of the time would be a scenario, a rare scenario, where the seller isn't offering any commission to any cooperating agents for bringing a buyer. It could be something like a for sale by owner, which doesn't happen all the time. For sale by owners often also pay a commission. But in this rare circumstance, we would still need to be compensated, of course, for our work, and this would be indicated here, for example, 2%. And we would just work it into the price, we would work it into the budget when we are making an offer. As I continue to explain it to them, I also say this won't be happening like behind your back or anything weird like that. I will be very aware of what the scenario is with the access to the MLS, and we will explain, we will have conversations about it, and we can decide to or not to proceed. That's the best way I find to explain these agreements. Just keep it light and simple. The buyer customer service agreement to avoid conflicts of interest, the buyer representation agreement to have our full range of services. Two really good examples of how to explain that you can use in your simulation session weeks or weekends while you're role playing, and to help pass the exam as well. I hope that helped, and if you do need more support to try to make sure you pass these exams first try, look for my Sims 1 Exam Master mini course and new Exam Master mini notes in the description below. I go over my exact fundamentals and strategies I use to pass every exam first try, as well as 25 plus really good examples of questions you will see on the exam. High percentage questions, not questions, and tricky worded questions. The Exam Master mini notes are there as well to really help categorize what is important. That link as well below is a value link for the YouTube family for the time being. Again, I really hope that helped. My name is Callum Moore, eXp Realty real estate agent here in Ontario. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.